Have you ever bought a lottery ticket? Do you recall sitting in front of that TV screen, waiting for those numbers to appear, checking those numbers one after the other with great hope of winning? Do you recall that rush of adrenaline, quickening of your heartbeat? And when those numbers match, you feel a surge of pleasure. And when they don't, you feel disappointment. You feel angry. Have you ever thought why these emotions happen? How does it happen? Have you ever given a thought about it? Why is this restlessness happens? Why do I feel vexed when waiting in front of that TV screen? Let me ask you a question. Why do you buy a lottery ticket? What is the reason for that? Isn't it because of desire? Don't you imagine holding on to that jackpot when you buy that lottery ticket? Expecting a better life, a desire of a better life, a change in life, more wealth, more luxuries. Don't you desire all those things when you buy that ticket? Because of that desire, ladies and gentlemen, because of that desire of more wealth, more pleasures, expectation happens in the mind. That is why you expect those numbers to match. Think of it. Whenever desire happens, whenever you have desire, expectation arises in your mind. It is because of desire to earn more money, expectation of similar numbers arise in your mind. See, whenever there's desire, expectation happens. But the thing is, whenever this expectation happens, it leads to vexation. That is why you feel restless, an uneasiness, an urge to win that lottery. And when those numbers don't match with the numbers on the screen, this vexation increase. That is what you feel as frustration or aversion. These negative emotions. Why? Because you were already vexed and now it has increased. But what happens when those numbers match? This vexation, it decreases, leading you to feel pleasure. This is how you feel pleasure or aversion when those numbers appear on the screen. But vexation is inevitable when there's an expectation. And expectation is inevitable when there's desire. Why do you desire things? Desire happens when we are unaware of the rules of the nature, the principles of the nature. In our last episodes, we discussed the rule of this nature, causes coming together. When causes and conditions align, an effect manifest. That is the rule of this nature. Desire happens against that rule. Just think about it. What are the odds of winning that lottery? How many causes need to align for those numbers to match? Apart from mathematical patterns and number patterns, for you to see that screen, there need to be electricity. Your TV screen needs to work. Millions of causes come together for you to see that number on the screen. That is why, just imagine, you are waiting in front of the TV and all of a sudden, the power goes off. How do you feel? You feel frustrated, right? Why? Because at that moment, you have an expectation to see those numbers. We forget that to see those numbers, millions of causes need to align. See, this desire always happens against those odds, against the reality and the principle of this nature. Just think about this scenario. Imagine you're running late to go to a meeting, and then you start driving a little bit faster than you used to. And when all of a sudden, if your vehicle collides with another, how do you feel? You feel frustrated, right? Because you have to attend to that meeting also, but on top of it, now you have to face an accident. But when you have that desire, you didn't think about any of those odds, did you? No. Desire always happens when we don't realize the reality of this nature. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are cautious about these expectations and desires, you will realize that every action that you do, every word that you speak, everything that you have, that you do, you always have an expectation. You always have your way. Think about it. When you get dressed to go to work, don't you have a desire to go to work early? Then you have an expectation of going to work before that red line. When you eat something, don't you always expect the same taste from what you eat? And if that taste is off, you can't bear it. Don't you expect your children to behave a certain way with you? Don't you expect your wife to talk to you in a certain way? Everything that you do, that you talk, there's always an expectation. It's always there. Because we don't think about the reality of this nature, which is the dependent origination. Because of that, we always live a life full of vexation. We are always vexed. That is why people get angry when something very small happens. And later on, they regret. Ladies and gentlemen, everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything you experience is a resultant of many causes coming together. Just imagine you are going out for dinner and you're at your favorite restaurant and you order your favorite food. And when you take that first bite, you feel that taste is off. Who do you blame? You blame the chef, right? You can't tolerate when the reality hits your expectation. But for that taste to happen, how many causes need to align? The freshness of the food, your health, all those things need to come together for that taste to happen. But despite all those odds, we always expect the same taste because we don't realize that taste is the effect of all these causes coming together. We discussed these things in our previous episodes also. How do you experience taste? Just think of it. It's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankhara and Vijnana, right? That is how you experience taste. When food come into contact with the tongue, it generates electric signals and then it is being recognized. What mind does is, whenever this rupa arises in the mind simply interpret this rupa, the taste. This is what you feel as taste. And it is the resultant of all these causes coming together. Just think about it. Can you ever taste the mouthful that you had few minutes before? Can you ever taste that? You can't, right? Can you taste the next bite you are going to have? Can you taste that? The next bite that you are going to have? No, that's impossible. The taste that you experience is the resultant of causes coming together. Not before, not after, not now, when causes come together. So if you understand that taste is the resultant of causes coming together, do you think expectation will ever happen on that? Of course not. If you understand that causes coming together is all that happens in this world, desire won't happen. Because this world doesn't bend according to our wishes. Things that happen, they happen anyways, according to how these causes get aligned. What you expect, what you desire, doesn't even matter. Just think about this. Right now, you're hearing what I'm saying, right? When does this hearing happens? Can you hear what I said 5 minutes ago? Can you do that? Can you hear what I'm about to say? Is it even possible? No. Hearing happens when these causes get aligned. If you are aware of this truth, do you think expectation would happen over hearing? Of course not. Expectation only happens when we don't understand, when we don't realize this truth. That is what we call ignorance. When we are ignorant about the reality of this nature, the truth of this nature, about this cause and effect driven principle, we always want things to go according to how we want. We don't accept the reality. Instead, we expect things from the reality. These things don't match, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens, and this is a natural process. When these causes get aligned, seeing happens, hearing happens, tasting happens. But when we are unaware of this process, when we are unaware of the principle of cause and effect, because of ignorance and attachment, it wraps around this and creates ego or sense of self. It's like a vine that wraps around a tree. Beneath that, the pure consciousness is always there, which happens when causes get aligned, not because I want. But when we are unaware of this truth, because of ignorance and attachment, we feel a sense of self, an ego. That is when this expectation happens, because you feel that I exist, and if I exist, things need to go according to my way. But the day that we realize that things don't go according to my way, things go according to how causes get aligned, desire won't happen, expectation won't happen, and vexation won't happen. And you will be okay with whatever that happens. Because whether we like it or not, that is what is going to happen. But when we don't understand these things, people commit suicide for very small things. People get depression for very small things. Why? Because despite all these odds, they expect what they want. It's like desire always whispers, I want these things. And what does expectation says? Things should go this way. But does it matter to nature? No, it doesn't. That's why when a young boy or a girl seek love from someone else, and when they get rejected, they can't bear it. Because when they ask out, they expect that person to say yes. And when they say no, they can't tolerate that rejection. And they end up committing suicide. But that girl or boy saying no is how causes got aligned. Your expectation doesn't matter. And when you expect, and when things don't go according to your will, you feel depressed. Ladies and gentlemen, understanding how nature works is the only way to come out of these mental issues. When you finally agree, when you finally realize that all you are is nothing more than a chitta, and these chittas arise and passes away when causes get aligned, you will be okay with nature. You will be one with nature. There is no other way to come out of these issues. The only way is to understand the reality of the nature. So until we meet next time, think about all the desires that you have, and think about how expectation happens because of these desires, and how you start to vex when expectation happens. And think the only way to come out of that vexation is to understand the principle of this nature is cause and effect driven principle. When causes and conditions align, these effects happen, manifestations happen. Things don't happen because we want them. Things happen according to how causes get aligned. Reflect on this truth. Try and experience how desire leads to expectation and vexation. And you'll realize that The true freedom that you seek happens when there's no desire, when you are one with the nature.